Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Michael Rossi, Chairman of the Clinton Planning and Zoning Commission. I would like to call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. Will the clerk please call the roll? Oh, you're muted.
My apologies. Michael Rossi,
Present.
Mike Knudsen,
How come I have no sound?
Present.
Ellen Dahlgren,
Present.
Eddie Alberino, Will Benoit, Mike Florio, Martin Jaffe,
Present.
Alan Kravitz, Adam Moore,
Here.
Jay Mandel, and Brendan Saunders.
Okay, thank you. We have a quorum and no alternates to seat, so we can go on. My comments tonight, I was going to comment that this may possibly be John's last meeting joining us. Please note that Jay Mandel just arrived at 7:01.
Thank you.
But we want to thank John for all his service and hope he does still stick around and help us out. You've been invaluable on regs, and I don't want to lose that continuity that you've been bringing to us. For everybody else, I hope you've gotten over the stress of the elections that happened last week, and hopefully you're glad that none of our seats were up for renewals, so you didn't have to campaign for yourselves anyway. With that, we'll go to the minutes. Let's see, we have the October 17th, 2022 minutes. Do I have any discussion?
Motion to approve? Oh, sorry.
Well, that's fine. Who made the motion?
I did.
Okay, Jay?
No,
Second.
Mike.
Oh,
Mike.
Mike, I'm missing it. Okay, Mike, and then Jay seconded, okay?
Seconded.
Yep. Any further discussion, issues, concerns? Hearing none, I think we can do this just by voice. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Michael, I'm gonna have to abstain because I couldn't get into the email and read them.
Okay, thank you. And one abstention. Okay. Thank you. Let's see. We are now to the public hearing. I don't know which of you agreed to read the stuff, but either Mike or Ellen, if you could read the notice
Yeah,
of
Mike's
public
gonna read
hearing.
it tonight.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Town of Clinton Planning and Zoning Commission, 54 East Main Street, Clinton, Connecticut, 06413. Legal notice of public hearing. Please check the town website for video conference details. The Town of Clinton Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing via video conference on Monday, November 14th, 2022 at 7 p.m. to consider the following. PZC-22-10 for 44 Waterside Lane, create a new lot with 32,870 square foot at rear of existing parcel, map 68, block 65, lot 113A, zone R20. Applicant Jared Kravitz, agent Robert Doan Jr. PE, LS. PZC 22-11 for 44 Waterside Lane, create a new subdivision with lot 32,870 square foot at rear of existing parcel, map 68, block 65, lot 113A, zone R20, applicant Jared Kravitz, agent Robert Doan. PZC 22-13 for 161 West Main Street, applying for a two-lot subdivision, re-subdivision, and open space parcel, map 23, block 10, lot 41, zone B4. PZC 22-15 for 215 East Main Street, requesting text amendments to the zoning regulations of the town of Clinton to permit electric vehicle charging, display kiosks as accessory uses by special exception on parcels classified in the interchange development zone, business 22-1, industrial -2 districts, map 78, block 68, lot 6, zone I2. PZC 22-16 for 39 Waterside Lane, zone change for subject property from R20 to R10, map 56, block 64, lot 51, zone R20, owner John G. Rowland, agent Greg Fetus. At said hearings, all persons will have the right to be heard. The applicants' applications and correspondence are available for public inspection on the town website. Anyone requiring special accommodations to participate in the virtual public meeting should contact the land use office at 860-669-6133. Michael Rossi, Chairman, Town of Clinton Planning and Zoning. Email to Harbor News for October 27, 2022 to appear on Thursday, November 3rd, 2022 and November 10th, 2022.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to note that Brendan Saunders and Alan Kravitz arrived at 7:04. Jay, are you an alternate? Yes. Okay, I would like to seat Jay for, let's see, Eddie Alberino and Brendan Saunders for Will Benoit.
And my
Okay.
apologies, sir. Brendan, and whom else showed up as well?
Alan Kravitz.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay, with that, we move on to PZC 2210. I would like to ask if there's no objection from the commission to listen to testimony for 2210 and 2211 at the same time, unless there's an objection from the commission. Okay. Because they're both 44 Waterside Lane. Okay, with that, I would like to give the applicant the opportunity to present their proposal to us. So is there an agent or applicant for the 44 Waterside Lane proposals?
Yes, there is. Good evening. I'm Bob Doan, professional engineer and licensed land surveyor, here on behalf of Jared Kravitz. Can I share a screen?
Sorry, I hit the wrong button there. I was trying to let you share the screen. All right, go ahead, Bob.
I'm having trouble sharing it.
Is it denying you or?
No, for some reason the plan's not, well, oh, there it is.
There we go.
Okay.
Coming.
At last month's meeting, we discussed the rear lot and the front lot and the shared driveway. And I think everything was covered. And we got to the question about a fee in lieu of open space. And there was a question as to how that's determined, et cetera. And the state statute refers to up to 10% for a fee in lieu. And I think the only thing that I would like to offer tonight is that I went back and listened to the Conservation Commission recording. And in that recording, and I have a snippet of it if you want me to share that with you. The chairman was about to make a motion, and let me just play a few. I don't know if, can you see that on the screen? A waiver of the land use acquisition plan after So in that, the chairman of the Conservation Commission is recommending a small fee, no more than $5,000. And we would like to request that the Planning and Zoning Commission, our Zoning Commission, consider a fee in lieu of $5,000. And I understand that it can be up to 10% of the value of the property. But I, again, emphasize that it is one lot that we are creating. If this were a 10-lot subdivision and the property was valued at $220,000 and you were seeking $22,000, that would seem more reasonable. But it is a one-lot subdivision and the property happens to be valued over 200,000. And we are therefore requesting a fee in lieu of $5,000. I think all the other items have been addressed, and I'm here to listen and answer any questions that may come up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to note that Mike Florio has arrived at 7:12.
Sorry, I had no internet. Just got it fixed.
And it happens to all of us. Okay. With this, I would like to recognize Ellen Dalton.
Yeah, the one thing that came up in the discussion last month over this was one that we were going to see what customary practice was in some other areas. I don't know whether other towns. I don't know whether John has any information of that nature or not. And also, one person made the point that if you had a large lot and subdivided, a small portion of it, maybe just 1%, but based the fee in lieu on the value of the entirety, that you could continue to collect fees based upon the entire lot, for multiple divisions of a small portion off of it. Which, I mean, if you divide 1% off of a large lot, 25
Actually, that's
times, it would be
that's
a lot of
actually
fee.
incorrect, Ellen, because of the way that the subdivision would be done. Once you've subdivided it, it is, theoretically, you've already taken that 10% off.
Well, I didn't think that was the way the thing was written, but I think that we need to make sure one way or another that that's not the way we're imposing things. I think this is a re-subdivision, isn't it? Or maybe it's not.
Okay.
John, quick question for you. The Conservation Commission usually doesn't have any authority to recommend or regulate what fees we charge, correct?
Yeah, it's not their call.
Okay.
Okay. Did you or Kathy have a chance to look into how these are done and if there's any history for how these fees are placed?
In Clinton, we don't have much of a history. In other towns, it varies a little bit. I can tell you in Essex and Chester and Deep River, they are generally guided by the 10%. I will say, basically, in this area, nobody has been collecting, nobody has really been doing any substantial subdivision for the last, 10, 12 years.
Right.
So there's really not a lot of recent experience, but generally speaking, towns that do collect are guided by the 10%.
Okay. Thank you.
And John, that's up to 10%. It doesn't say that it has to be 10%.
No, right.
Does anyone have from the commission have questions for the applicant at this point before I open it up to the public? Okay, with that, I'm going to open this up to the public. Again, I'd like to point out that this hearing is being recorded. Both the video, audio, and chat are being recorded. We would like to have anyone from the public who wishes to testify, please put their name in the chat along with a note saying whether they're testifying in opposition, in support, or just general comments. If there's anyone who has an interest in that, please put your name in now. You do not have to have your video on to speak to the commission. So, don't feel that that's a necessity. Jarrett, you're actually the applicant, so you can certainly speak.
Okay, thank you, guys. I couldn't tell if everything was coming through the screen on my end to yours. So the one item I wanted to note, and I guess reconfirm, as Bob said, these regulations for fee and lieu in subdivisions were essentially established years ago when there was lots more land and people were subdividing all over the place. It was designed in a way that gave some amount of flexibility to situations like these, because if, as Bob said, this was a 10 or 15 lot subdivision, and you're talking about spreading that $20,000 cost across multiple building lots, that's a very reasonable and practical way for a builder, a financer, and a town to collect their funds. For us, we're creating a single building lot, and with the intention of creating an excellent taxpayer for the town into perpetuity going forward. So it's just an unnervingly high amount of money to pay for one building lot. But again, I defer to the commission, and you guys know your regulations, but that's why and how that regulation for fee and lieu was established years ago by our legislators.
Thank you. I thought I saw someone,
There is Peggy Adler has a general comment.
Peggy. Okay. Peggy, go ahead. And
I've always liked the idea of subdivisions having to have open space requirements. And so if there is going to be a subdivision somewhere, I would want to see that they have the maximum amount that they would have to pay if they're going to avoid having the open space.
okay. Thank you very much. Is there any other comments from the public at this time?
May I
Okay.
make a comment?
Yes, you may, Kathy.
I just, looking at the regulations and what the intent is, and John, feel free to jump in if I'm misinterpreting, but I would believe the intent is fee in lieu of isn't supposed to be fee less than. I think it's either one. So you can do the open space or the fee in lieu of, but I think it should be an equivalent, not less. Because the purchase is, it's either to have open space or to have money in a fund to acquire open space.
Correct. I'd like to hold off on that discussion until when we're considering this application at that point. I think it's a debate type thing that we really do need to have, but I don't think it belongs necessarily in the public hearing phase of this. Adam, did you have a statement or question? Oh, okay. Okay. I do agree that last month we got through everything else on this. So if there's no more comments from the commission, I would entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
I'll move to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Martin.
Second that.
Thank you, Mike. Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none. Christie, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mike Knudsen,
Aye.
Ellen Dahlgren,
Aye.
Mike Florio,
Abstain.
Martin Jaffe,
Aye.
Adam Moore,
Aye.
Jay Mandel,
Aye.
and is Brendan here?
Yes,
Brendan Saunders?
Aye.
That was an aye, correct?
That was an aye.
Thank you, sir.
okay. Thank you, everyone. The public hearing has
I
been
wasn't
closed.
called.
Oh, you missed,
Oh, my goodness gracious, I'm so sorry. Alan Kravitz.
Aye.
My apologies, sir. Thank you.
okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Can we
You're
undo the
welcome.
screen sharing so we can see each other?
I am.
There we go.
Okay, thank you.
And just to point out, that is now eligible for a decision tonight and when we get to old business. So it's not necessarily over. Okay, planning and zoning 22-13, 161 West Main Street. This is a 2-lot subdivision in open space. Is there an agent or applicant present for this? I didn't think I saw Bob here. Let's see, this one was continued also. I don't know what our clock is on it. Do you know, Christie?
Well, it was opened in October, so you have 35 days to close unless you receive a request for an extension from the applicant. And I would ask
Okay.
Christie and Kathy if we've received any request for an extension.
We have not received anything from them, no.
Okay. I would,
I was gonna
I
say,
would-
we have been in touch close with them though, because there was an issue with one of the public hearing signs. So I know Christy and I have both been in touch with them on a regular basis about this application. And they submitted a letter to us about their open space request, which Christy sent. Christy, it was sent as, I believe, correspondence, but it's also part of the record for the application.
I saw all that. What I was going to suggest is that we temporarily table this until later in the meeting to give the applicant, if nobody objects, to give the applicant a little more time to show up. Because if they don't show up, I believe we should deny this application or,
We have to-
close the public hearing and then deny it because it's incomplete.
Yeah, I'll move to table.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mike Florio got that. Okay. Can we have a roll call vote on that, please?
Aye.
Mike Knutson,
Aye.
Ellen Dahlgren,
Aye.
Mike Florio,
Aye.
Martin Jaffe,
Aye.
Alan Kravitz,
Aye.
Adam Moore,
Aye.
Jay Mandel,
Aye.
and Brendan Saunders.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, the next item on the agenda is Planning and Zoning 22-15, 215 East Main Street. This has been withdrawn, so we don't have a hearing here tonight. Okay, we move on to item E, Planning and Zoning 22-16, 39 Waterside Lane, change of subject property from R20 to R10. Is there an agent or applicant here for this?
Mike, we have correspondence that needs to be read into the record too for this.
Okay, do you want to do that for us, Mike?
Sure. Okay, this is a letter received November 10th, 2022. RE to the Town of Clinton Planning and Zoning, RE 39 Waterside Lane application for a zoning change. To the Honorable Planning and Zoning Commission members, would you please read this letter into the minutes of the 11/14/2022 Planning and Zoning meeting? We are 30-year residents of Waterside Lane and ask that the application for the zoning change for a R20 to R10 zone as proposed for 39 Waterside Lane, map 78, block 68, lot 6, zone I2 not be approved. 39 Waterside is part of a historic district of Waterside Lane, and a change in the current zoning would have the potential for development of the property in a way that we feel would not be in keeping in the overall character of the lane. We understand the recent real estate trends have led many to be interested in properties on Waterside Lane. However, existing zoning regulations are in place for a reason. Making exceptions for properties would go against the reason behind the original regulations, which were to keep the charm and overall look and feel of the lane that so many appreciate and that we have called home for so many years. Please consider disallowing this variance request. Sincerely, Sue and Bob Cunningham, 26 Waterside Lane, Clinton, Connecticut. Okay. Next one, received November 10th, 2022 to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Dear Commissioners, we are writing to express our strong opposition to the requested zone change for 39 Waterside Lane. Our reason for opposing this application are explained below. Waterside Lane is arguably the most historic street in Clinton, having originally been an Indian trail linking a winter campground on what is now Main Street with a summer campground at our current town beach. The lane was first populated by settlers in the 17th century. In some cases, land grants from British rulers made this development possible. Today, the majority of homes and outbuildings in Waterside are historic, including the two that can be found at number 39. What enhances all of these structures, including the two that can be found on 39 Waterside, what enhances all these structures and subtle tells the story, it's the surrounding natural environment. It allows for a glimpse of our past, which instills a sense of pride and place in all of us. Whether we realize it or not, when reflecting upon our shared heritage, we each get a sense of our own identity and many promising possibilities for our community and collective futures. As a couple, we were excited to purchase our home on Waterside Lane in 1991. Since then, we have had the pleasure of watching generations of Clinton residents enjoy our street as walkers, runners, bikers, rollerbladers, or as passengers in motor vehicles. On numerous occasions, these individuals have expressed their appreciation for all that we, along our neighbors, do to maintain the integrity of our historic street. They truly embrace the historic homes and the vistas, such as the one across 39 Waterside towards the Indian River, that gives the street its character. When one assumes ownership of a historic structure, he or she becomes a steward of not only the building, but the land upon which it sits. We are certain that the new owners of 39 Waterside appreciate the 220-year-old home they now own, in addition to the historic barn. And they are undoubtedly aware both buildings are contributing structures to the Clinton Village Historic District, and as such cannot be removed without the consent of the State Historic Preservation Officer. If this 1.03 acre property were to be rezoned as R10, another house could be constructed on it. The integrity of the site would be lost as a new dwelling and driveway are crowded onto a bucolic landscape. We suspect the majority of those who enjoy their walks and rides along Waterside are not aware of the repercussions of the possible zone change. We are certain that they would be very alarmed at the prospect of further development on 39 Waterside. Many years ago, those who served on planning and zoning acted wisely when designating this property as R20. It is essential that this designation remain intact and the vision of your predecessors is affirmed. Sincerely, Mary Wagner and John Wagner. Okay, we got another one, I think two more. I think there's two, but maybe only one.
Want me to take this one, if you want a breather?
It's up to you, Alan. I'm on a roll now.
Go ahead. Then.
All right. This one was received November 14, 2022. Dear Commissioners, the Waterside Preservation Association was founded in 1976 as a tax-exempt organization dedicated to the preservation and restoration of the natural and built environment of the town of Clinton, in particular the resources of historic Waterside Lane. A memorandum of agreement among the association, William A. Parsons, then the first selectman, Daniel Weiss, representing the town of Clinton, provided for rezoning portions of Waterside Lane to R20. The town of Clinton Board of Selectmen ratified the agreement on August 16, 1977. We also advocated that the properties of the association members on Waterside Lane be included in the upgraded R20 zone to help preserve the relation of open space to historic structures on the lane. That is, to maintain the historic structures in their natural setting by the zoning map of the town of Clinton adopted by the Clinton Planning and Zoning Commission on July 9th, 1984. The R20 zone included the areas of Waterside Lane that it includes today. A further propose of the R20 zone is to control the density of development, especially in areas that do not have public sewers, which is the case in Waterside Lane. To downgrade to an R10 from R20, any areas of Waterside Lane would reverse an almost 4-decade precedent of zoning that has helped preserve the resources of this area of Clinton and would be counter to purpose of the town of Clinton of the conservation development to conserve historic resources and to manage the density of development. We therefore urge the commission to maintain the R20 zone of Waterside Lane as it presently exists. Thank you for your consideration. Respectfully, James R. Vivian, Executive Secretary, Mary Kelly Bush, Treasurer. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Is there an agent?
Kevin, there's one more letter that was requested to be read into the record.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Dylan.
Do you want me to read it? Or do you want to?
Go ahead, Ellen.
All right. This was received November 14th, 2022. We respectfully request this letter be read into the record. Planning and Zoning Commission, Town of Clinton, Town Hall, Clinton, Connecticut, 06413, Ray. PCC 22-16 for 39 Waterside Lane, zone change of subject property from R20 to R10, map 56, block 64, lot 51, zone R20, owner John P. Rowland. Dear Commissioners, first we thank you for your time, effort, and planning by serving on this board. We appreciate your dedication. Second, with great respect for your work guiding development and preserving the best qualities of the town of Clinton, we are mystified by Mr. Rowland's request to rezone property he just recently purchased. We hope your carefully considered zoning cannot be so easily changed. To an outsider, Waterside Lane may appear to have inconsistent zoning. There is a mix because the street is one of the original. It is quote, land situated in the first society of said Killingworth, unquote. Our house built in 1805 has enjoyed the same boundary with that of number 39 Waterside Lane since it was purchased by John Wellman in 1824 and refers to the Killingworth Records, volume 22, page 428. Clinton zoning maps show that at least since 1984, number 39 Waterside Lane has been a linchpin in a solid swath zoned R20 that stretches to the sound. Older homes were grandfathered in that zone to preserve their integrity on the land upon which they were built and thereby represent some of the history that Clinton holds. In addition, zone R20 better protects the wetlands that border the west side of Waterside Lane from number 39 to the sound and development density, which is important as there is no sewer system along Waterside Lane. After 198 years, why lose what we can never regain for our historic town? Please deny this application. And it's signed, sincerely, it's signed Mary Kelly Bush and Daniel Piccioni. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Thank you.
Are we done with letters? I hope.
I think we're done with letters now.
Okay.
I only got 3 of those when I did the download, so I'm sorry. Okay, Greg, I believe you're up as the applicant or agent, I should say.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman Rossi. My name's Greg Fettis with Fettis Engineering. Professional engineer licensed in the state of Connecticut, representing the owner of the property at 39 Waterside. And we submitted a full application, which basically at this, the majority or the kind of the bulk of it is the existing zone map and the proposed zone map. And if I can share my screen, I'll bring up the existing zone map, just so everyone can get an idea of what we're asking for. Can I go ahead and share, John?
You should be able to. Are you being prevented?
Nope, I
Okay.
got it. Thank you. Let's see. So this is in the existing zone map, you can see in green is the R10 zone. And I guess the purple or violet is the R20 zone. Waterside lane is right where my cursor is, running north to south. And the parcel here surrounded on 3 sides by R10 is our parcel 39 waterside. I'm gonna just blow that up a little bit. So on both sides of our property or our R20, they're both half an acre lots. Our property is 1 acre. So the one frontage we don't meet, we don't meet frontage, which is 110 feet. But several of these other lots don't meet that also. But our proposal is to change, again, 39 Waterside to, let me get it here. So this is the proposed, which is again, just to change the subject parcel to R10. And the biggest reason we're doing that, we had met with John Koskowski early on in the process and talked to him about what the options might be for us. The major objective is to preserve the existing house and barn. So, you know, kind of what we thought about was, all right, a zone change would help us do that. And as part of that, we would put a deed restriction on the house and the barn, which would basically preserve it in perpetuity. The exact language of the deed restriction, I mean, the intent of the deed restriction would be to save, to basically eliminate the possibility of demolition and or major alterations to the existing house and barn. So that's a condition we would look to place on this application if that made sense to the commission. So, because I know there's a lot of a little bit of history recently on the street with another house that was up for demolition, and anyway, we're trying to avoid that. We'd like to keep the house in the historic. It's from 1800. We'd like to keep it as is, and we would be willing to put a deed restriction on that. So what it allows us to do is, yes, it would create the ability to create another lot, which we would go ahead and build a new house, set back off the road, not affecting the character or landscape of the road. Modest house that met all of the zoning regs of the R10 zone. So I got a couple comments just regarding the wetlands to the west. You know, there was some mention in one of the letters that the R20 would protect that better than the R10. The zoning regulations protect it. There's a 50-foot setback to that regulation, whether you're in an R10 or an R20 zone. So changing the zone would have no effect on that setback requirement. So with me tonight is also Matt Williams, who is going to speak about the historic nature of Waterside Lane, as well as the existing house on 39 Waterside. Matt, I can switch it over to you. Do you want me to unshare? No.
Matt, you're muted.
I will text them. Let's see. There's Matt Williams, you're muted.
It doesn't look like he's muted, but his microphone isn't working.
Oh,
Greg, while we're waiting, do you have any other testimony to
yeah.
provide?
Yes, I'm just going to share my screen again. And while we're waiting for Matt. So I just wanted to acknowledge the 4 letters of 4 properties that did write letters in opposition. I'm going to start kind of at 26 Waterside. They're in our R10 zone. They had both these parcels here, 26 and 28, that they had split in half to create 2 parcels. 32, 34, and 36 were all created out of 1 parcel. I would say relatively recently in the last 20 years. 43, I think, is a smaller lot, but one of the original lots. We didn't find any evidence of splitting off. So they've been around for a long time. 44 Waterside is, I guess, a similar application. Their property's a little bit bigger, but they lack the frontage on Waterside. They do have frontage, I guess, on this private road, but are not able to access that. So they actually received, I think, 1 or 2 variances in order to get before you tonight, which they did get approval for frontage and access, I believe. And then 64 was created out of the lot adjacent to them that was split apart. Again, not in the last 20 to 30 years. I don't recall the exact date. But getting back to the map, we are surrounded on 3 sides by R10. It does make sense to kind of straighten this line out a little bit. Also, and guarantee the preservation of 39 Waterside, both the building from 1800 as well as the barn. So in perpetuity. So I think that's everything I have. I can try to see if Matt, I'm going to just mute for a second and try to call him and see what's happening unless he's on.
I have a question.
Yeah, well, let's give them a moment and then we'll go to the commission. Give them one more chance.
Does he want to call in to the meeting? If he can't get his microphone, he can use his telephone and call in on his cell.
I think he's trying to connect to audio now, so
Okay.
I'm going to call him.
Okay.
All right, Matt, can you speak?
Matt, are you there? Nope. We lost him again.
Why don't we table it?
Well, I would prefer to have the commission members ask Greg questions at this point, if they have any for him.
Mike, can
Uh,
you hear me? Mike,
What? I,
That's
Yeah.
Matt. He's here.
I'm here on my phone, so I just want to let you know I'm here.
okay, well, we were waiting for you to testify, so if you're available,
I am. Yeah, no, I
Okay.
apologize. I've got this Windows 11 laptop that's brand new that did a software update this weekend and it hasn't been right since, so. My apologies. Let me jump in here for a minute. For the record, Matt Williams, Williams Architects, in Madison, Connecticut. I also live in Clinton. I believe Greg wanted me to speak a little bit about the historic issues, and I think a lot of the very legitimate issues that were raised by the folks who wrote letters. And I think we really expected that this proposal would, you know, just with the minimal information that we have now and just trying to change the zone was going to perhaps cause fear and maybe a little confusion as to what our intention is. I think that the whole reason to do this is to provide a protection for this historic property, this federal house built in 1800, the Wellman House, that the other structures don't have. I think as most people are aware, this is the Clinton Village Historic District, which is on the National Register. Both structures at 39 Waterside are contributing structures to the district. But if this zone change were to be approved, what we would propose would not in any way, shape, or form detract from the character of the street. I think everybody in town has known me for enough decades to know it's not generally the way I try to get involved, do things. I generally won't get involved in something unless I think we can do it the right way. So I was asked to take a look at this to see if it was feasible to place another house of with an historic character to the rear of this property that really will never, ever be noticed and really has no impact on the streetscape itself. And that's really what we intend to do. So we took a look at it with Greg. I think it's important to note that we have a property here with enough area to meet the R20 zone if it were to remain in that zone, but it just falls short in a couple of technicalities of being a simple free split or 2-lot subdivision, just because of the old geometry of it. And I think as Greg has shown and demonstrated, we all know that the drawing of zone lines is, imperfect at best, especially in old neighborhoods. But in this case, this particular lot could have easily fallen from one side or the other. But I think by allowing this to be changed to R10, what we'd end up with is a nice, historic stone drive that would just sort of disappear to the rear of this lot. And any new structure would not be noticed by anyone. So I think that the other thing to realize, and everybody remembers, I think 69 Waterside Lane, earlier this year, where I believe that there was an application for demolition of that structure, became, of great concern. And I think I share everybody's concern with that and the visual aspects and in the history of Waterside. And I think that in this case, what we're asking to do is, if we're allowed to change the zone, is to give this particular house protection that none of the other structures have on the street. And that is that it would be to any owner, either present or future, they would be required, they would be prevented from demolishing it. And again, I'm not a lawyer. We don't know exactly how that language would work, whether it's a conservation easement of some sort or what it might be. But that's what we would want to have in place if the zone were changed. I don't know if anybody has any questions about any of that or.
okay, well, I'd like to start by allowing the commission members to ask questions. And I believe Jay had a question.
I did, but he answered it. So he wants to have build a house behind the house and then have a separate end driveway or common driveway. That's what I don't understand.
No, it would be a separate driveway. It would I mean, if you ever look closely at that property, It almost looks like there could have been two structures there at one time. The land isn't level. And it's sort of an empty lot in between it and the neighbor, which is 41 or 43, whichever it is. So I think that a new drive in there would just, and there's some beautiful trees on the property too, that we would keep near the road especially, that I think it would just be a quiet little drive that went to the rear in a much more appropriate fashion, other than a lot of the other lots that have been developed pre-zoning with, and particularly 69, which had all those little cottages behind it. This wouldn't be anything like that. It would just be a little lane that would, little driveway that would just disappear into the rear of the lot. And that's visually what the impact would be.
And then the new house eventually would have to meet all zone planning and zoning requirements.
Exactly. I mean, we would have to come back for, I'm not sure, Greg can speak to this, but whether it's a, I don't know if it's a free split or a subdivision or what it is, but we'd have to show that the new lots under R10 would comply, obviously.
Okay, thank you.
Ellen, I see your hand.
Yeah, my question, I think you answered it. The path forward that you envision is rezone, then subdivide, and then build. This would be a separate lot. You're not looking to build as an ADU, for example.
No, no.
Martin? You're muted, Martin.
This is for my clarification. It's a little over a 1 acre lot, and the R10 permits building a one dwelling unit per 10,000 square feet. In theory, I mean, we aren't looking at a subdivision at a specific project. We're only looking at a rezoning. But in theory, shouldn't you be able to put 3 additional houses on that parcel?
Yeah,
under an R10 zone?
Not with the lot geometry. We would not have the frontage. And even if we were to propose a rear lot or a flag lot in this situation, that wouldn't work either. So because it's a long, deep lot and quite sizable, 2 lots is all anybody would get out of this in R10.
And
So
keep in
if you
mind,
so if you're R20 and you have a 1 acre lot, you won't be able to fit on 2 houses with the R20 zone?
No,
It
because
sounds like they should be able to fit in.
the
well,
rear
I
lot
think-
has to be 1.5 the size of the,
right. And the problem with the R20 is that the minimum square requirements, the frontage, we can't, we can't comply.
Okay. Thank you.
One thing I'll just
Alan.
add. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Alan's up.
Yes, Matt, you have a site plan.
Greg could probably put up the survey. Greg, do you have that?
Yes. Give me a minute to just grab it.
Well, he's getting that. I think somebody else was going to ask a question. I missed it. Who it was?
Alan's hand is up.
Yeah, well, he started, but somebody else also, I thought. Okay, go ahead. Alan, what was your question about the site plan?
Well, I just asked if they had one.
Oh,
to
okay.
Look at, I just want to see how they're going to accommodate.
So this is Greg Fettis with Fettis Engineering. This is the survey we did recently for 39 Waterside. You can see, as Matt was discussing, the house as well as the barn seem to be kind of offset on the lot. So when we do only have 141 feet of frontage, the requirement in the R20 is 110. The rear lot requirement is 1.5 times. So we thought about, and when we met with John Koskowski, we thought about, should we just try to go get a variance, I guess similar to what 44 Waterside did, or does it make more sense to do a zone change given the existing zone map that we had up prior, where we're surrounded on 3 sides by the R10, which makes more sense. And, you know, we concluded that this makes more sense because it would allow us to preserve the house as well as the barn as part of this development or as part of this zone change. So that house, as Matt was discussing, would end up back in this area. There is a 50-foot setback from the tidal wetlands, which we have marked on the plan here, and that gets you back in kind of this area here where my cursor is. So you could kind of see from this, we don't have site plans developed yet or subdivision plan developed yet. We didn't want to put the cart before the horse, but we did think a little bit about it, where lines might be given the parameters of the zoning regulations.
One
Yeah, I
one
think
of the,
that-
Go ahead,
the-
Alan.
the through view from the street is wonderful. And is there any way to preserve, you know, by careful location of the second home?
Well,
Preserve that through view.
yeah, the through view, yes, you do see there's some, like as Matt said, there's some large trees throughout here, which
Right.
we'd be looking to preserve as many as possible. But, and the house would be set back to that 50-foot line. So the 50-foot line is coming across like about here. So there's not going to really be, you know, that house is going to be set back. I wouldn't say exactly behind the existing house, but it is going to be set back in this area here, which would allow some through view here. It's pretty wooded, I want to say,
In
kind
the
of
corner,
along
yeah.
this common line here.
Mhm.
And the views really are more to the south, I guess it'd be the southwest. But there'd be a good portion of it preserved. You know, and part of it is, I know there was some mention of, you know, why did the owner buy the property and then all of a sudden switch gears? He had every intent to kind of fix this house and fix the barn. He loves the road, loves the property. But it was kind of too much for too much. It was too much. You go through the house and you start looking at things and you say, all right, I don't have it in me. It's going to take a special person to renovate this house, and, you know, keep the character and make it livable to the 21st century levels of what, you know, kind of the modern amenities we all like in a house. So I think, you know, every intent was there to live in this house and, you know, kind of keep it the way it is, renovate, maybe do some small additions or something, but it was just too much to handle once he got into it.
Yeah, I think that what Greg just mentioned is important because, you know, there are old houses and then there are old houses. And this house is very original on the inside in the layout, including the stairs, the back stair with its treads that are about 6.5 inches deep, and elements like that. And I think that it really requires, you know, someone who really with a hands-on sort of appreciation of this kind of an antique, which I truthfully don't believe the owner realized what they were going to be in for, and just trying to make this not just, and I'm not talking about a perfect to 21st century living. I just mean, you know, just making it more or less livable. It's a beautiful piece, you know, it wants to be preserved, and I think that they appreciate that as much as anyone. And that's, you know, having gotten to know them a little bit, I definitely believe that. I think the barn's an important part of it. I think it's important as you look at the survey, this is very much like, you know, the development pattern was, as you go further down Waterside, you've got, and directly across the street, the same frontage, you have 2 houses, not 1. So this open meadow that sort of breaks between 39 and I guess it's 43 to the south there. It's almost like a hole in the streetscape. If you know, from the 1800s, I'm not, you know, I don't have any evidence anything was ever there, but that geometry of 70, 80, 90-foot frontage is really what's more typical, and I think really adds to the character of the street. And I certainly understand the neighbors worrying that somebody's gonna drop, some kind of a, something right there on the street that's totally inappropriate that, nobody wants to see, but that's entirely not the case here. Having looked at that rear portion of the property with Greg and this, in the wetland setback and otherwise, the house would be to the left of that old fence that's shown on the survey. So I don't know how many feet that is off the road, but it's a long way. It's probably a couple hundred feet by the time you get back to this building. And the new house would be beyond the back edge of the existing barn, the big barn. That old shed back there probably comes down, but the barn is, I think, an important piece to the original house at 39. So I mean, I really think it can be done very nicely. And I think, again, what we're looking to do is add the protection of the original structure, which I think would be great. I mean, of all of them, this is probably, and I know the fronts of every one of these houses over the years, having looked at all of them, studied them, we've duplicated a couple of them. This is one of the really pristine examples, this facade. I think it's really a great building. So the last thing we'd want to do is detract from it.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions from the commission before we open this up to the public? Mike, were you talking?
Yes, I'm sorry, I was muted. I have a question. So you're gonna build this new house in the back side of this, and then what are you gonna do with the house that's there existing? You're just gonna, is it gonna fall down? Like he doesn't want to fix it? Is he? I'm confused.
Well, I think that it could, if it's, on a separate lot, it could be sold, or they could keep it for themselves and use it as a second house. I think it's up to them. But
So
it's
they're
not.
gonna live, they're gonna
down,
live in that. They're gonna live in the,
it becomes its own property. Just like it is now.
so they're gonna live in the historical house and then build another house, then sell the house that they just built?
Or maybe not sell it. I don't know what they're going to do with it, but it, the reality is if this is to be subdivided, the house would have a deed restriction on it that it couldn't be demolished.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions from the commission? You'll get a second chance if something else comes up. Okay, with that, I would like to open this to members of the public. Again, as I had mentioned, this is being recorded as is required. The chat is also being recorded, but we would like you to, if you're interested in speaking on this application, please put your name in and say whether you're speaking either in support of the application, in opposition to the application, or general comments. Once again, members of the public are not required to have their camera on, although we do prefer it. That will not prevent you from speaking. So if there's anyone who would like to talk, again, if you put your name in so we get your name correct for the record, that would be helpful. Peggy, I see you're in as a general comment. Go ahead. You're muted, by the way.
You're muted.
I'm just fascinated by the fact that 26 Waterside and 32 Waterside wrote very beautiful letters about the history of the lane, but there are 10. So I find it interesting, if the whole street was R20 and somebody wanted to change one of the properties to R10, I could understand their objection. I guess I don't understand why people who are R10s themselves are objecting to another piece of property becoming an R10. That's all.
Thank you. Let's see, Maureen, I see that you have put your name in. Can we have your last name also, please, and add for the record? Maureen? Wellman, okay, thank you. The floor is yours. You're muted at the moment, though.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay. Just a couple of things. When 69 down Waterside was going to be torn down and it was fought, it was protected because it was on the historic registry, National Historic Registry. There's been an awful lot of talk about putting in the deed that this house would not be torn down. Well, it can't be torn down anyways because it's on the National Historic Registry. So I don't quite understand that argument. I think it's just kind of throwing a bone or something at it. But the house is protected. It was, it's very historic. If the demolition sign went up on that, we go back to what we did for 69 to protect it. A couple of things. This is the second time now in the matter of months that it's happened that someone has bought a house, decided that they didn't like something, the R20 to R10, or they didn't like the way the house looked inside. So, no one has mentioned the option of if you bought something that was too difficult to fix, or you didn't know what you were getting into, then I wish that somebody would sell and go to some place that already exists rather than changing and kind of creating a little bit of turmoil here to suit what you wanted when you're not, so let's just change the zoning. That, I don't know, that just doesn't seem right to me. And I wrote a few things down as the gentleman was speaking. The driveway that disappears, that's an interesting choice of verbs, disappears. Modest house, that's an interesting choice of adjective. Preserve the trees. All of this sounds good, but we have absolutely no reassurance that this will happen other than some people that have, that's what they're saying. I have no idea if that's what would happen. I just find it's interesting. The person bought the house, it's too much. They had every intent to live there, but the house was too much to handle. Okay, so then we move on. Don't try to change what's there to suit what we like it to be. It isn't that way. So putting in the deed that the house can never be torn down, like I said, I believe the house is already well protected. That's not necessary. And the other gentleman on your commission asked a very interesting question. Now, what are you going to do with the house in the front? It's too much for you to handle. Are you going to sell it? Obviously, they're not going to fix it up. Will it sit there for a while and kind of go downhill? So, and the fact that, oh, look, there's a big lot there. Maybe something used to be on there. Well, if something used to be on there, it would have been recorded in the town hall. So, I've lived on the street my whole life. There's never, I know maybe back before then, maybe there was never anything there. So I think these arguments are somewhat spacious about building a house in the back. It all sounds great, but you could be blowing some smoke up our skirts. So that's about all I have to say. But I would like it to not change the R22 and R10. Thank you.
thank you. John, before we go to Mary Kelly Bush, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a clarification point of fact about the protection, the historic protection of this house or any house. The Waterside Lane is not in a National Register. It's not in a municipal historic district like Liberty Square is, Liberty Green. That's a state historic district. This property and the area is a National Register of Historic Places, which confers a degree of oversight for demolition, which is to say it is subject to a demolition delay, and neighbors can petition for a public hearing, but it does not guarantee any protection against demolition. So a voluntary offer of preservation would in fact have some meaning. It is not automatically protected. It's just, there is just a demolition delay that applies. That is all.
Thank you. Mary Kelly Bush, I believe, is next.
Thank you. Oh, can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Just replying to what was just said, these houses are registered with the National Registry of Historic Homes, and they cannot be demolished unless they are unsound. And I will go on record right now to say that both the barn and the house are perfectly sound. So that's one thing. Peggy mentioned that she thought it was peculiar that people, the homeowners whose homes seem to be in, R10 would advocate for this property that we're talking about being preserved, not being allowed to become R10. But again, there was a very concerted effort to which the town and the zoning was a party to that designated this swath down the street to be R20 for the protection of the historic nature. To say that the property will not suffer in any way, shape, or form is as much double talk as saying robbing this house of its property that has always existed with this set property, because I've researched the records going all the way back. That will demolish it. And I guarantee you, people who walk from this town, who walk down this street all the time, will notice and be horrified about the zoning choice if this is changed. A house in the property, in alignment with the barn, will be perfectly noticeable from the street. And I know how it feels to have somebody say, no, you can't do this. But, and I must say also, so I apologize to the Rolands, but okay. And you mentioned two properties that have there was mention of two properties on the street, people who wrote letters who recently subdivided. Well, they have bought property to protect the land, the open space. And one of those, that open space properties, was sold, but it was kept clear as long as possible. The other, and at 64, the property adjacent on the same side of the street, those two houses were built by relatives in the early 19th century. So I don't know where this lawyer is getting his facts. And no, there was never anything built on this land. It was always intended to be open. And I hope you will consider this history. And the further back you put that house, the more vulnerable it is to the hurricanes and the flooding that occurs back there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. John, I see you have your hand again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I again want to emphasize that despite what several people have said now, and they're providing very little in the way of factual evidence, I would like to provide to you. This is a screenshot. This is the National Park Service, which is under the Secretary of the Interior, which oversees the National Register of Historic Places program. This is their frequently asked questions page. And I'm scrolling to the frequently asked question, can I modify, remodel, renovate my historic house? And would like to highlight this first section. Under federal law, the listing of a property in the National Register places no restrictions on what a non-federal owner may do with their property up to and including destruction, unless that property is involved in a project that receives federal assistance, usually funding or licensing and permitting. So to be absolutely clear, this building or any historic building is subject to be able to be demolished. The only thing that the town and the state has in place is a demolition delay by which allows neighbors to petition against it, and the Attorney General may step in, but the National Register designation does not, full stop, prevent demolition.
Deed restriction
thank you.
clearly does.
A deed restriction would, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, before we have any more discussion from the commission, is there anyone else in the from the public who would like to speak? I don't want to prevent you from having an opportunity at the public hearing. Okay. With that, we will move back to the commission members and any questions they have. I have one that I would like to ask, sort of a rhetorical question in some sense. Greg and Matt, you both said that you don't actually have the language for the deed restriction yet. How do you expect us to be able to close a public hearing and make a decision on such a thing if that is a key element of your proposal?
Greg Fettis with Fettis Engineering. We could make it a condition that we work with John Kiskowski and the town attorney to come up with the correct language that protects the intent is to protect the property. So or we could keep the public hearing open and we can come back with something. I think the former is the wiser. Well, I would say it is, just because I think working together, the professionals working together, they could come up with the correct language.
Yeah, my preference, okay, and I'm going to be jumping ahead a bit here. My preference would be to close the public hearing, but not to make a decision on this until such language is presented to the town. So, because if you're allowed to give that material to our staff, and we wouldn't, that's allowed after the close of the public hearing. That would mean that you'd have a month to work out the language prior to us making a decision. That's just my preference. Anybody else can feed in there. Ellen has her hand up first, and I'll cut you to you, Mike. Go ahead, Ellen.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify the process and where we are here and what the role of the commission is in each step of the process. And I'm depending upon you, John, to help me out here. Right now, what we're looking at is a zone change from R20 to R10. And that actually is part of our regulations. So basically regulations, it's essentially our lawmaking function. We have a lot more flexibility, as I understand it, in what we do in terms of making regulations than we do in what I think would be step 2, which is we would be looking at an application for a subdivision. An application for a subdivision would obviously have certain lines drawn. They'd be telling us exactly where lot 1 and where lot 2 end up. That I think is not our legislative function so much. We're bound when we do that by our subdivision regs. And then finally, step 3 would be the approval of any building that might happen on the separated lot. And there again, we're bound by our regulations, our zoning regs at that point. And again, we have less flexibility, I believe, at that point, because there aren't the regs in place. So is it true that we have the greatest flexibility at this point that, in terms of a change to the actual regs?
May I respond to that, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, everything you're saying is correct, with the tiny modification that this is not actually a regulatory change. They're proposing to change the map. They're not going to affect the regulations. They're basically just asking that the rules of one district apply rather than their current district. So it's not a
Okay, I
text
thought the
change. It's a
map
map
was
change.
part of our reg, but all right.
And yes, you have broad flexibility or broad latitude in this case, though you generally should be guided in this decision by the Plan of Conservation and Development. And then should you look favorably on this proposal, you would have to see it in as a subdivision, based on the applicant's statement that they'd be interested in subdividing, which is basically an administrative function under your planning hat rather than your zoning hat. And then the third, it would, if any development lot would be subject to certainly CAM and probably flood, depending on exactly where on the property in this case. So it would come before this commission at least twice more.
Okay. Mike Johnson?
I think it's been answered. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Any other questions or comments from the commission? Matt, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple of quick things, and I know we're running long here. I have a really good photograph from the street of this open space between, as the survey showed, there's a lot of space to the south of the existing building. And I don't make comments flippantly about whether I think it could actually look appropriate. I'm sure it would. So if I could share that, I'd like to just show it. I think it would be important. And I think it would be important for the people who are concerned about this to see it. As I know they've lived there, they understand it, etc. But if I could, I sent it to Greg Fettis. Greg, if you have that photo, those 2 pictures I sent you, you could share it or I could share it. Or Mike, you can have me share if you'd allow me.
John's got control.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Matt.
All right. So this is 43, I believe it is, and this is 39. This is the existing picket fence, and the reason I made the comment that it almost looks like a separate property is there's sort of this berm here at this edge. There's and then it comes down to a different elevation, and then there's really beautiful trees. There's a beautiful red maple back here. The fence on that survey is way back here, and we're talking about something beyond that. So it's a beautiful little meadow that I don't think would be in any way destroyed by a drive that went through here. It is the width of many of the building lots on the road, and all it would have would be the drive, and what you might see, or what you would very likely see, is perhaps a garage styled as a barn back here. That would be our intent. So I just wanted to show that to everybody. Hopefully that helps them. The other thing I just want to speak very quickly about is that the whole confusion about historic districts and protection. A local historic district is what Liberty Green Historic District is, because I believe it's a 2/3 majority voted to have really a local government put in place that has very strict oversight as to what you can do aesthetically on those 7 or 8 properties, however many they are, like where Peggy lives. That's a local historic district. This is just it's an historic district that's listed on the National Register, but unfortunately, as John has pointed out, doesn't have any of those legal protections. And I think what we're trying to do here is say, this is a good zoning balance. This property, which is very oversized for the R20 zone, if there's another building that does not in any way detract from the character of this local street, it would, and at the same time, gives a protection to a structure that none of the other structures that actually have. I think that that's good balance. And when I first started to look at this, I thought that it's something that perhaps zoning in the future can look into as to how to incentivize the preservation of these buildings, as you almost lost 69 earlier this year. And the more people who come in who don't have an appreciation that all we do locally for these buildings, the more at risk we're going to be for this kind of a thing. So that's just my my final word on that.
Thank you. Ellen, you have your hand up?
Following up a little bit on the point that I made earlier, one open issue is, since this is a multi-step process, where the most appropriate place to put the restriction against demolition would be, whether it's at the whether it's at the rezoning stage or whether it's at the subdividing stage, etc. And I think we also kind of need to see what the language of that might be. I mean, there's got to be an out. If the place were 90% destroyed by fire, well then, there's what exactly is the out that would be part of it. That's part of it as well. Whether it's appropriate to put the restriction at the rezoning stage or at the subdivision stage. And I think we might even need a legal opinion on that.
No, I don't think we need a legal opinion. It's our opinion. I do believe that you're correct. We have the most leeway, and it would make more sense to do it at this position if we were going to be interested in making that choice. My concern again is we don't have that language yet. And so I'd really like to hear from commission members about how we proceed in terms of whether we wait to close the public hearing until we get that, or as was mentioned by the applicant or the agent, whether or not we just make it a condition, or if we hold the, do it as a close the public hearing and let them work it out with the lawyers and come back to us when it's done. Martin.
Just a general issue. Once it's down zoned, we've been hearing all this language about how sensitively everything's going to be cited, and how well designed everything's going to be with modest houses and maintenance of landscaping. But once it's basically down zoned to an R10, whatever house on a 10,000 square foot minimum lot size goes in there, there'll be very little discretion over it. There's very little discretion over the subdivision, as long as it meets the technical requirements, is basically approvable. As long as it meets the zoning, if it's a buildable lot, you won't have much flexibility to deny the subdivision. And once it's subdivided, you will have practically no authority over what goes in as of right on that new lot, if it complies otherwise with the zoning. So, there will be diminishing oversight as the process proceeds onward. And if we've all dealt with CAMs, if it's outside of the flood zone, or if they move it up to the street, the as of right house, there's not much you're going to be able to say about the CAM in order to turn it down. What I'm starting to think about, given the fact that there's all this architectural language and people concerned about maintaining open space and modestly sited houses and preservation of landscaping, is maybe it should not be an R10 rezoning application, but a planned development. In that way, the whole thing can be negotiated out, the whole design of it can be negotiated out at the time of zoning, as well as any restrictive covenants or any other design restrictions that may arise in the design or positioning of any additional structures on the lot. Something you won't have with the straight R10 rezoning. I'll just throw that out there.
Thank you. Alan?
Yeah, I agree that, and I think that I would like to see, frankly, we're talking about not about a major zoning change. We're talking about one lot and one house. And I would like to know more about the house. I would like to see, frankly, a site plan for the house, because we're going to have to deal with that later. And that's another control that we have less control. And I think there should be a package that involves the clarification of the site plan and clarification of the language of the agreement not to take down the existing historic property. I would put those three things together and like to see that before we act.
What do you mean by a site plan for the house? You mean the plan subdivision?
Yes.
Okay.
For the, a site plan. Yeah, it's a one lot subdivision. One house, let's see it.
But that's not what's on the agenda tonight, so I don't think we can even really discuss that, right?
No. We can discuss approving this, though.
Correct.
Those are conditions that I think the specifics of this decision require that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, John.
So just by way of clarification of Alan's point, I do think that this commission would be within their rights to request more information on what the potential implications of this zone change would be. Because again, it is a single lot that opens up a relatively limited universe of possibilities for development. And as part of, as Ellen said, the fairly broad discretion that this commission has over changing its map and its regulations, fully understanding those implications, could certainly sway the decision. So I think it's certainly not inappropriate, and I think it is and even not unreasonable to ask for a bit more information about what the long-term implications of this rezoning would be in terms of development.
Thank you. Greg.
Yes, Greg Fettis Engineering. Just want to state that we're not prepared, obviously, to submit what Mr. Kravitz is asking for tonight, but we are prepared to state that it's not going to be more than 2 lots. It's not possible. And we would offer that as a condition that the maximum number of lots would be the existing house and 1 proposed lot. So there's no way that, and that maybe that would alleviate some of Mr. Jaffe's concerns that, it's 10,000 square foot zoning, 40,000 square feet. Maybe you could get 4 lots. We can't, and we'd be willing just to put that in the record that we're limited to 2 lots total.
Yeah, I keep coming back to the language of preserving the property. The more I think about it, my suggestion is that we keep this public hearing open until we can get that language from the applicant, so that we have it to consider as part of our part of the package. And that, I think that would help us a lot in making that determination. Listening to what people have said, it would certainly help me. Is there anybody who, from the commission who thinks I'm off base? I would certainly accept that.
No,
Adam? Okay, go ahead. Mike, I think you were talking.
Yeah. I say, no, I agree with you 100%.
Okay, thank you.
100%.
Okay. With that, then, is there any other comments from the commission for tonight? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to continue this public hearing to next month. Well, wait, I'll let Greg ask a question or make a statement.
Matt,
Yeah.
can you take down your screen? Sure. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Greg Fettis, Fettis Engineering. Just want to clarify, there was some mention of flood zone and site plan and more information. So we're fully prepared for next. It sounds like you're heading in the direction of leaving the public hearing open, which is fine. We just want to make sure that we're fully prepared for the well in advance of the next meeting, so everyone has time to review new material, which would be the deed restriction language, plus maybe a possible subdivision with site planning and where flood zone stuff is and all of that. Is that correct?
I believe that would address what Alan had asked for.
That indeed was my intent.
Okay. It would not it wouldn't be your actual site plan, so it wouldn't completely lock you into that, but it would give us a sense of what you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, I would entertain a motion to continue the public hearing
So moved.
to next month. Alan, thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the commission? With that, Chrissy, can we have a roll call vote? Or yeah, roll call vote.
Mike Knutson,
Aye.
Ellen Dahlgren,
Aye.
Mike Florio,
Aye.
Martin Jaffe,
Aye.
Alan Kravitz,
Aye.
Adam Moore,
Aye.
Jay Mandel,
Aye.
and Brendan Saunders.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to staff reports. John and Kathy.
Mike,
John,
Michael, we have something tabled,
you want to deal with that now? Okay, we
I
can.
mean,
Yeah, we probably
on the
should do it
public
before we
hearing
leave the
portion.
public hearing. Yeah, right. So we had, let's see, Planning and Zoning 2213, 161 West Main Street. We still don't have an agent or applicant here for this tonight. With the clock, we do need to close the public hearing before the next regular scheduled meeting. So at this point, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just would note that I believe if you look at your agenda under correspondence, there is a letter dated 11/7 from Robert Gabrick, who is the applicant's representative on this regarding the open space parcel.
Yes.
So that letter should, if it's involving this application, which it seems to be based on the citation and correspondence, it references PZC 2213.
Okay.
Should probably be included formally as part of the record, so you're able to discuss the contents of that, before you close the public hearing.
Well, it's already in the record.
It's
We
in the
don't-
file. Okay, if it's just
Yeah.
make sure that, because it's listed under correspondence, I just want to make sure that it's there.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so can we have a roll call vote on closing the public hearing?
And that's for PZC 2213, correct, sir?
Correct.
Thank you. Mike Knutson,
Aye.
Alan Dahlgren,
Aye.
Mike Florio,
Aye.
Martin Jaffe,
Aye.
Alan Kravitz,
Aye.
Adam Moore,
Aye.
Jay Mandel,
Aye.
and Brendan Saunders.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to staff reports. John, I'll leave this to you first.
Okay, so I submitted my report. Hopefully people get a chance to review. I did have the opportunity to have a very long conversation with your incoming planner, Abby Pearsall, and was reassured in my thinking that she will be an excellent contribution to this commission, and is, I think, ready to hit the ground running at the end of November. One thing that I think I don't recall, I have to bring up my report, but came up in the last week or so is that an application to do some sidewalk improvements, a transportation improvements program, TAP, Transportation Alternatives Program, TAP grant, which we submitted back in 2019, 2020 under Christine Goupil's administration. It was sort of sidelined by the DOT, and quite recently, DOT now finding themselves more flush with money for infrastructure construction projects, is able to sort of go further down their list of projects. And this was for sidewalk improvements and extensions down West Main Street, basically from High Street and North High to westerly towards Lumberyard Road, I believe on both sides of the street. They are revisiting that, and it seems like funding might be available with some municipal match, I believe about a 20% municipal match. So I put that to Town Manager Carl Kilduff, and the Town Council is something that they may be interested in. Obviously, it would require some municipal contribution, but it would be an 80% grant for some sidewalk improvements to continue our efforts to do sidewalk all the way up and down Route 1. So that's some positive developments. And I would, anyone's a sidewalk advocate, I'd encourage you to speak with your town council chair, who happens to be on the meeting this evening, and the town manager to encourage them to take advantage of these funds, which I will not be around to assist with.
Yeah, that sidewalk area is absolutely horrendous. So that would be a nice change to get that fixed up. Thank you. Okay, Kathy.
Okay, so my report, I always go over every month our enforcement, because I have a lot of blight and land use complaints. So this year we've received 66 complaints so far. Last year we received 60 in total for the year, and I have closed 60 of those 66 complaints. I also mentioned, speaking of our new town planner coming aboard, some items that I want to bring to her once she gets settled in that I'd also like to bring to the regulations committee. But the main one I wanted to discuss, some of them are just kind of housekeeping that I mentioned, has to do with properties in flood zones. We've had a lot of issues lately with ZBA, where the ZBA kind of feels between a rock and a hard place, because if a developer wants to expand significantly, for example, the maximum living area, even though it's within the regulations, the ZBA will often get a report from Marcy Ballant, who's the senior coastal planner at DEEP for CAM, that it is, and I quoted the language that she uses in her reports in my report about could result in significant exposure of life and property, will knowingly put more people in harm's way, and it doesn't follow the policy of CCMA to minimize threats to life and property. And also our fire chief has had a lot of concerns about these small lots with these large properties that are so close together, actually saying that this is a quote recipe for disaster, and that it could can make a catastrophic fire event. So I had talked briefly with our town attorney, but also at the Casio meetings that we had, where ZEOs and other shoreline towns share the same concerns. And it was presented that the best way to handle it would be to change our zoning regulations and potentially the plan of conservation development as well. And I know Westbrook and Guilford have already made changes to their zoning regulations to address these issues, especially with sea level rise and flooding, because a lot of the infrastructure, the roads are very low lying. So even though the houses are elevated, the roads are not. So it's something probably stay tuned for, and we'll discuss it more when Abby Pearsall starts, and I can work with her on how we can make some of those changes.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Adam,
A quick question, Kathy. We haven't heard about this in a while. We used to get a monthly update. Did we ever resolve the Cashman litigation?
So that's an interesting topic. I'm just trying to decide how much of this I should state on the record. Yes and no. There's a couple things that the neighbor next door has, come in a few times with some concerns. I know there's been a lot of back and forth with, between
Maybe
the two
executive
neighbors.
session might be better.
Yeah, I don't really want to get into it too much, but
I think we locked her up.
Convenient.
She's just being really, really thoughtful.
Yeah.
I think probably
Yeah.
pending litigation should be handled under executive session.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay. Let's leave that question. I sort of agree. If it's going to be anything that's attorney-client privilege, then we probably should make sure it's under executive session.
yeah. I can put it on the
Just to be
next
safe.
agenda.
Thank you.
Sure, we'll put it on
Because
the next
I
agenda.
want to make sure that that's an important question. So let's make sure it's addressed
So-
properly.
Quick follow-up, is that the only current litigation that this commission's involved in?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's good news. Okay. With that, let's move to new business. We have Planning and Zoning Commission 2818 for 7 Central Avenue and 20 North High Street. Application to amend the zoning map to change the zone of both properties to transit-oriented development overlay district and expand that and update the master plan for the station at Clinton. This is, we need to just receive this and schedule it for public hearing. So we really don't need to have much of a presentation tonight, but if there is an agent or applicant who wants to give us, 2 or 3 minute, that would be fine. Is there an agent or applicant here tonight?
I don't
Nope.
believe they're here tonight.
Okay, well,
No,
they don't
yeah.
need to be. So can I have a motion to receive and schedule for public hearing at our December meeting?
So moved.
Second,
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Ellen. Okay. Any discussion? Okay, can we have a roll call vote on this, please, Christie?
Mike Knutson,
Aye.
Ellen Dahlgren,
Aye.
Mike Florio,
Aye.
Martin Jaffe,
Aye.
Alan Kravitz,
aye.
Adam Moore,
Aye.
Jay Mandel,
Aye.
and Brendan Saunders.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, the next item, we're into old business. We closed the public hearing on Planning and Zoning Commission 2210 and 2211. Waterside Lane to create a new lot. And then to create a new subdivision. The discussion here that I think we need to have is what we think is the appropriate fee in lieu I know there was some very good comments made about that Adam had made about how, the point is to be the value of the property that they're not giving up or that they're keeping. So in that sense, it would be closer to the 10% value. They're asking for 5,000, which is more like 2.5%. Okay, or maybe even less than that.
A little less than 2.
A little less than 2. Okay. So I understand the argument that 10% is awfully steep for a that subdivision, but I really still feel that 5,000 seems to me to be almost insulting. If the purpose is to raise money, use this money to be able for the town to buy open space, you have to have it be enough money to buy open space. And so I was thinking of sort of cutting the difference and saying 5%, but I would like to hear other people's opinions, and if I'm, so who would like to follow that? Adam?
I
can
mean,
see you.
yeah. For me, how do you, it's almost an arbitrary decision. When the next one comes up, how do you determine whether, and maybe it's much larger, maybe it's more subdivisions, but if he walks in and says, well, the last guy paid 5%, that's all I want to pay. How do you do that? I think we kind of had a standard in the regs, and I guess I'm in favor of following that. If it was going to be 10% of the land, it should be 10% of the value of the land. It's not supposed to be an out. It's supposed to be a potential workaround that shouldn't reduce the value of what the town's receiving.
Agreed.
Okay. I can't argue with you. Okay. Anybody else? I know want to weigh in on this?
I think we should ask Adam to form a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, just before a motion, I want to correct myself. I said it was a little less than 2. It's a little more than 2. It would be 2.2%.
Okay, so I was almost right.
You're sorry.
Okay.
That's what it is. It should be.
But yeah, Adam, do you want to make a motion?
What I have to relook at it. Where are we at with the?
Well, I would just do it as a percentage of value and not say the dollar amount.
But we're approving a subdivision with a fee in lieu of land at the value 10% of the
total parcel.
If I might, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I would recommend actually putting the dollar figure. Because again, it's not the total parcel value. It is the town appraisal of the land value of this portion of this parcel.
Spell it out that it's a percentage of the town appraisal valued at whatever it was equals. Right. Let's do the math.
It's the appraised value of the land per the town of Clinton assessor's office. The appraised value of the land is $218,300 as of the 2020 valuation. The 218,300. 10% of that would be $21,830.
Can I suggest that the motion include both the amount and the computation, because that addresses Adam's concern about precedent? I mean, it shows where we came up with it. We didn't just imagine it.
I think that's fair. You got all that, Adam?
No.
So I would, if Adam is interested, I would recommend a motion to approve the subdivision on Waterside Lane at 44 Waterside Lane as presented, with the modification that instead of open space, a fee in lieu will be accepted in the amount of $21,830, which represents 10% of the 2020 Town of Clinton appraised value of the land at 44 Waterside Lane of $218,300. And that value, that payment be issued prior to the final signing and filing of the Mylars.
That's my motion.
You're so
Well
eloquent.
I'll
Um,
second it.
Okay, Mike, seconded, thank you.
Hmm.
Okay, any further discussion?
Since that's a subdivision, we don't have to put anything about consistent with the P O C D or anything in it.
As long as it meets the regulations.
As long as it meets the reg, yeah. Okay. Can we have a roll call vote on the, this is, to be clear, this was the, both the creation of a new lot and the new subdivision. We had combined those two. So can we have a roll call vote on these paired applications?
Mike Newton,
Aye.
Alan Dahlgren,
Aye.
Mike Florio,
Aye.
Martin Jaffe,
Aye.
Alan Kravitz,
Aye.
Adam Moore,
Aye.
Jay Mandel. Is he still here?
He's here.
He's here, but he's muted.
Aye, sorry. Aye.
No, it's okay. And Brendan Saunders.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, we're on to item 7C. So that's 2213 and it's 161 West Main Street. We closed this public hearing, but the application is not complete. So I would entertain a motion to deny the application because it's not complete.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, could we clarify what elements and maybe Christie or Kathy can elaborate what elements are missing?
We were unable to have the actual hearing because the applicant was not present.
Okay. Was this the opening of the hearing or was it?
According to, this was a continuation, I believe. So we are at the end of the.
I apologize. You guys are discussing 161 West Main Street, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is continued from October. So we're at the end of our clock on this for closing the public hearing, which is why we closed the public hearing.
Right. You are not
And
at the
so-
end of your clock. I'm just saying you're not at the end of your clock for making a decision. You have 65 days from this point to make a decision. I'm not, I would need to go back and look at the minutes for what was presented and why this was continued and what was missing. I'm not certain, and so it may be appropriate to postpone decision on this. Well, because you do have time to do that, just to maybe get a staff report of what elements are still missing.
I'm willing to do that if it's up to, can I have a motion to postpone a decision on this application?
Just a
Good
clarification, I
basis.
mean, we could get staff reports, but we haven't heard from the public on this at all, so it's a
Right.
really half-baked public hearing.
That's what, that's sort of where I was going, but
Okay, I'm sorry. So the last, there was basically no public input received. It was just proposed.
there
for
was no,
continuation?
right.
No
Because
presentation, no
There was
input.
no, right, there was no
Okay, all
presentation
right.
and no
I
input,
think
Was
I misremembered that.
incomplete.
yeah. So again, that's why I had said at the beginning of the meeting that I thought it would be closed and then denied for being incomplete.
I would, yeah, I guess, and I apologize for my own misremembering the conduct of the hearing last month. But I would still recommend, I don't think it harms anything to postpone this until December, so we can get, I think probably from staff, a list of specific reasons why this was incomplete, so that you can put that on the record as part of your motion.
Don't they have to grant us an extension for us to?
No.
No,
Um,
not for making a decision.
Right.
He would have
so
had
you
to do it
closed-
to,
You close the public hearing within 35 days, and then following the closure of the motion, hearing, you then have 65 days
After,
to make your decision. So you're just beginning, this is day one of your 65.
Okay.
I guess documenting it does protect us better. All right.
okay. So can we have a motion to postpone? Or well, actually, we don't need a motion. We can just table this. And so a motion to table,
So moved.
okay,
I'll second.
thank you. Any discussion? Okay. Can we have a roll call vote on tabling, Christie?
Mike Knutson,
Aye.
Ellen Dahlgren,
Aye.
Mike Florio,
Aye.
Martin Jaffe,
Aye.
Alan Kravitz,
Aye.
Adam Moore,
Aye.
Jay Mandel,
Aye.
Brendan Saunders. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, the next two items are relatively easy because 2215 was withdrawn, so there's nothing there. And 2216, the public hearing didn't close, so we have no action that we can take on that. Okay, we go on to item 8, correspondence. Town of Madison notice to adjoining municipality for special exception and coastal site plan application at 1362 Boston Post Road. I unfortunately was unable to pull down that document, so I have not read it. I was all three pieces of correspondence I was unable to get. So if somebody has comments on them, I would be thankful to hear that. Christie?
I'm sorry, was that because you couldn't access your account?
Yes,
Oh, okay, okay, thank you.
yes. I'm arguing with, I've got to get my IT situation with the town account corrected because it's driving me nuts.
Yes.
Yes. So are there any comments on any of these? Do we have anything we want to send to Madison?
Does anybody, can anybody tell us what the matter, what the change is?
I have the letters here in front of me. I don't know if you want me to read them. I do not know. You let me know.
How long are they?
Well, you don't.
Are you
need
going to
read-
lose your voice? That's what I'm saying, okay?
If I
Okay.
might, you don't need to read the text amendment one. That is no longer a necessary statutory referral. The site development one, the special permit and coastal site plan review, if it is likely to create significant traffic impact that be of your interest, I'd be curious to see what it is. I actually haven't seen the site plan either. But would affect traffic on Route 1, just across the Hammonasset Bridge would be the potential impact.
Okay.
And if
Convert
it's,
it here to a dog park.
is it a dog park? Yeah.
That's a relatively low traffic item. That's probably a good thing for us then. I can't suggest a comment to them since I haven't read it. I apologize.
And one is not required of this commission. It's for
Okay.
informational purposes.
Right. Okay, and then we have the letter from Bob related to open space for the parcel. Okay, and we've already moved through that one, so. Okay. At that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mike. Jay, second.
I
Okay,
second.
yep. And I think we can do this by just saying aye. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You would have been lynched. Abstaining? Okay, we are adjourned at 9:06. Thank